Hey everyone, it's Stacey Luces. Welcome to Beyond the Quo. I came in here like a wrecking ball. And in my mind, I'm like, oh my God, what am I gonna talk about today? But I really honestly know what I'm gonna talk about. I just needed time to recalibrate. So for those of you listening, if you know me, you know I talk about three things. One is how to redefine success based on your own terms and your own definition of what that looks like, how to lead courageously. And a lot of time that starts with leading ourselves and those nasty little, tiny little habits that honestly can change our life. And then the other part of it is how do we live more authentically? And that sounds easy in theory. It's like, oh yeah, I'm real all the time. But a big part of this is as we grow older, as we move into different seasons of our life, as we build those calluses of leadership. And a lot of you in my community are leaders in your fields. That gets harder and harder sometimes. And we do more, what's the right word? Editing of ourselves. And so this podcast really is designed to allow me some space to be with you and focus one at a time on strategies that move you incrementally closer to those three things, but also feature guests every now and then that float my boat and that I know for sure will resonate with you. So today we are officially in December, and that makes me cringe a little bit because it's always a month that is tough for not only us as leaders, as parents in my case, as I've been with my husband for 22 years. You do a lot of reflection. So December is that month where it's kind of that Hail Mary. Like, what have I done for the year? Did it live up to some of my expectations? And also, we're looking around and sort of positioning ourselves for a new year, a fresh start. And so a lot of us start the new year with a resolution, right? And I don't know, I like to use that gym membership example where everybody's all excited. The gym is packed the first 30 to 60 days of the year. And then boom, 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 myself included. We've got this very sexy membership and not the sexy body that we maybe wanted. And so I thought would focus a little bit this episode on the word purpose and replace that with that concept of resolution. So I wanted to talk about when you understand your life's purpose or when you have a purpose or when you live in purpose and how that can be used directionally, not only for this month, like kind of figuring that out, but as you move further and further into different parts of your life with more intention, like how is that going to show up for you? So today, again, as we're officially in December, December is not soft. It's not cute. It comes in hectic. It comes in with a lot of lists, a lot of events, a lot of metrics in some cases, right? I know those of you still in corporate, maybe you are coming up on performance reviews, right? And having to rate people on how they did for the whole of the year. And so it's really a tough, grindy kind of month. And so what I wanted us to do when December starts uh, chewing at your heels and you're tired, right? Your spirit's tired, or maybe you feel a little bit deflated because the year didn't go as you want. I want to talk to you about getting beyond that survival mode, getting beyond that performative, and really thinking in a very strategic way about how you get motivated and how you lean into this thing called purpose. And so, with that kind of foundation or background, if you will, for this episode, why the heck does purpose even matter? I know look, I'm a Gen X person, and there's a lot of skepticism and a lot of toughness about our generation where anything that feels remotely soft and squishy gets moved to the back of the line. And when we talk about, oh, I want to live in my purpose and find my purpose, and she or he walks in purpose, sometimes people tune out. Sometimes we tune out. And if you keep moving and going what you believe is forward, but but you're not actually meeting those marks and hitting your stride, then having a directionless life and going in circles is the definition of the status quo. And my commitment to you, and I started this podcast to myself and to you in my community, is that we want to get beyond the quo. And part of being in the status quo is that it feels really familiar. It feels really comfortable. You know the demons here, and you have accepted some of them. And better the devil that you know than the whatever's new on the other side of that change or that movement or that shift. And so really, from the outside, your life may look full. And I think I'm sensing that with a lot of people. I'm sensing that with what's being posted online. If you read, I like to read. And so, yeah, the reels catch me, but I like to read the captions and the posts and really see what's influencing people to write and share the things that they're sharing. And a lot of it is feeling empty and this almost yearning for a sense of direction, which I'm going to call purpose for this, right? So when you don't choose your life deliberately, and this is something when I'm talking to clients and when I'm working with organizations and we are doing their strat planning and we are sort of doing the bigger picture things, it's really important that we neck down and niche down rather into the core things. And it often starts with your core values. It often starts with understanding who you are, what's important to you, and kind of not living on autopilot because it's easier. So the biggest benefit of knowing your purpose is that you can then manage your expectations of yourself and others and your situation. You can adjust your circumstances in a way that is fruitful and not feeling hectic and hasty. You can lower some of that fear you have, and fear runs the gamut, right? It runs the gamut from I'm getting older and what's my legacy? Or I work so hard and I don't have anything to show for it. Or my kids are growing up and flying the nest and now am I going to be left alone? Because this is who I've been my whole life. Or I'm in this partnership or this relationship that feels super stagnant, or this job. And so a way to pressure test some of these comfort zones that are actually not actually helping us to grow or live up to our full potential are some of the big bang benefits of that purposeful life. One of the things I was focusing on as I was taking notes for this episode is going back to the status quo and the illusion, right? That we are in control, that things are good, and so forth. And status quo can feel like stability. And I know I stayed in jobs for a long time, even though I knew it wasn't where I wanted to be because the benefits were good or the salary or, hey, I like the team or this manager wasn't as bad as the other manager. And did I have bursts and sparks of fulfillment? Sure. But it was a status quo existence that paid the bills. And I know for a lot of the clients that land on my doorstep, a lot of the work that I write about in leadership is we are defined by our titles and the paycheck and the esteem that we feel it brings us. But it can be a trap. It can feel like just stability. And so another status quo that many of us are living in, good, bad, or indifferent, is parenting, the responsibility cycle, and the practicality of our lives. And like I said, none of this is good or bad, and we can be indifferent about some of it, but there's a time and a place for that. And maybe that's the season you're in right now. But I will also challenge you that those things don't have to necessarily come hand in hand with stagnation, boredom, complacency, that quintessential, I'm just living my life. The years are ticking by. There's another one coming up. And I just feel like I am moving in circles, standing in place, even while tired, even while busy, even while exhausted. And it fucks you up. Even while it feeds you, it messes you up, right? I was reading one time, Oprah said, and this was a long time ago when she had when she was syndicated, like not on her own channel, but when she was more in the regular mainstream networks. And she said that every human being wants to know that they have lived up to their full potential. And even as a young adult, that sentence stayed with me because I see that played out in so many situations where decade after decade, we're not living up to our full potential. And a lot of times when people go to coaching or they see other people doing something that looks easy, they're like, oh, I can do that. And the challenge becomes, well, why haven't you? Why haven't you done it? If you want to be a millionaire and you say you have the potential to do that, why aren't you a millionaire? Or why aren't you an influencer? Or why aren't you an author? Like insert whatever there. And so sometimes we mistake surviving for thriving or for living fully. And you can think you have everything and still feel stuck. So what is it about this statement that are you living up to your full potential that pauses a lot of us in our tracks? It gives us that little anxiety feeling, right? Like, if the teacher's coming around and you're working on your exam and you're stuck on the question and you're like, everybody seems to be getting the answer and I'm not. Are you living up to your full potential? And I would argue that knowing your core values, knowing your purpose in life, and it doesn't have to be finite, right? It's not like, ooh, I've arrived at the destination of knowing my purpose and now my work is done. Please, I wish it were that easy. That would make my life and my job, and I'm sure a lot of your lives and your jobs easier, right? So that's the danger of the status quo. All right, so moving into the next portion of our chat, how do you find your purpose without making it weird? Right? Remember I told you I'm Gen Z? Like it feels weird saying to people, well, you guys, I've paused because I really want to find myself. What they're saying is, I'm running in circles. And so a truth that we dance around is that for most of us, our purpose isn't missing. I think it's just buried under the layers of responsibility and practicality and comfort that I just described. For some of us, for many of us, so I've always shared that I am an immigrant. I was born in Trinidad. I like to say I grew up in the United States of America. And a part of this is how you find your purpose. Sometimes it means going back to yourself. And for a lot of us, it's buried under being the strong one or buried under obligations, whether it's parental obligations or sibling obligations or whatever that word obligation means to you, and buried under doing what makes sense. I did a few workshops a couple of years ago on the good girl syndrome. And what the good girl syndrome is that even if we are a powerful CEO and we are doing 9 million things, and we go home and we are exhausted, burnt out, tired, we feel obligated that we've got to go and prepare dinner or take care of the dishes because that's what a good girl, wife, mother, insert whatever here is supposed to do. And that conditioning really messes with us, yeah? It really does. So sometimes your purpose is buried on who people need you to be. And it's hard to come out from under that. It's really hard. People in their 40s and 50s, we call it a midlife crisis. So I'm in my late 40s. And shit, I can't believe I just said that. Usually I just lie and say early 40s, but whatever. I want to say that for a lot of people, there's a feeling of, is this all there is? That's your first indication that your psyche, your spiritual side, that inner voice is discomforted by the things that make you comfortable. It exists, that inner knowing exists to lead you closer to your purpose. And so this concept of midlife crisis People buy a car. I mean, I talked to a gentleman the other day and he was actually researching what type of shoes to buy. And he was very honest that he understood he was looking for external things to give him that validation. He had had a milestone birthday. And I want to say that for a lot of us, the need to find our purpose shows up quietly. It shows up in sleepless nights. It shows up in discomfort. And so a part of finding your purpose is going back a lot of times to the things that used to make you light up. And for many of us, you'll find people picking up hobbies or volunteering for causes that light them up. And I honestly think a lot of us volunteer for causes that meets a need that we didn't have fulfilled when we were growing up, right? Whether it's feeling safe at home, whether there was domestic violence or violence in the house, whether it's for me, I'm really magnetized to support foundations that serve education, empowerment, advancement in underserved communities, because I know that those are the things that were the stepping stones for a lot of the success in my life. So I have an inner calling that really is my passion to empower others, educate them, bring them in community, move forward together, because that's what made the difference for me. And for some of you, that just does not light you up. You're like, no, I want to save dogs or cats or whatever, right? None of it is good or bad. None of it is more important than the other. We all need all of it. I'm just saying that those are indicators that can give you, to some extent, better insight into what's going to light you up and getting closer back to your purpose. What makes you feel alive again? When I walk people through my 3-month coaching program, the second phase is always the hardest because the second phase of the program invites you to dive into your purpose and passion. And for any of my past clients listening, I'm sure you're laughing because here's where we stumble. Here's where we flounder. Because for some of us, we don't even know what our favorite movies are anymore, which is so weird, right? So purpose isn't something you go out and find in something new. It kind of is that inner calling or that inner knowing, or in something that moves you in your memories, in your child self or your young adult self. And it comes back to you when you stop outsourcing to some extent what makes you happy, what you think should make you happy, which a lot of us have defined that as being successful and further being successful via material things. The car, the status symbol, the purse, the events we go to, the type of people we think we should surround ourselves with. And so if you're living your life meeting everybody else's expectations and your own are left quietly unfulfilled, that gets louder and louder on the inside. And that's why you have so many people drinking wine copiously every day, right? All right, so how do you find your purpose without burning your life down? Okay, this goes back to my theory I talk about with you a lot, which is how do you make 2 millimeter incremental shifts in your life that get you closer and closer to the desired outcome? What does that mean? Quickest example I always use is if you want to become fit or have the level of vitality that you need to move into your later years comfortably, one, that those habits have to start now, but sometimes we try to do it all at once. So we want to overhaul the diet, cut out all the drinking, like every single habit that we think is quote unquote bad. We want to go cold turkey, and it's like starvation of everything that used to bring you joy. That's not going to last at all. Unless you have ironclad discipline, which if you had ironclad discipline, you would not need to do that anyway. Sorry, not sorry. So the 2 millimeter shifts include, okay, for this year, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to walk for 10, 15 minutes a day. Next week, I'm going to drink more water. Maybe I just increase it by 2 glasses. Okay. The next week, maybe I will cut back to drinking twice a week. I don't know why I'm picking on drinking. I know why. I only drink socially, but a lot of people are coming off of a dry November, and then they're going into the holiday season where you know you're going to be tempted, and then you're going to get back on the horse, and then you're going to beat yourself up. Like, instead of going dry fully, unless for medical reasons you totally have to, cut back. There are a lot of non-alcoholic alternatives, right? So part of this is those 2 millimeter shifts are still going to get you incrementally closer to the big bang, massive change that probably you're desiring. So that's how you get closer to your purpose without burning your life down, without changing every single thing. And now you are left overwhelmed, even more so than you were before, and feeling like you're a failure because who the heck can do all those things in 1 week anyway, and giving up entirely and going back to the same thing you were trying to get out of. So part of this is not thinking of it as complete and total destruction or total reinvention. Maybe it's just a slight renovation, right? Maybe you just want to get better habits than the ones you have now. So a part of this is, as you think about the design for finding your purpose or getting closer to that question, what are the standards that have to be different? And for a lot of us, those include boundaries. And boundaries is trending right now because I was reading a lot of articles on people that have cut off talking to their family or parents cold turkey. They're like, no, I wasn't happy with the way that I was raised. You broke me. I'm not saying that's a good or bad thing. I'm just making an observation that that's what's trending right now. But it really got me curious about the why behind, for some people, what is a seemingly dramatic shift. And I think a lot of it is when we are going through hard times and hard things, yes, there may be a lot of instances where people in your life made decisions that impacted you in a negative way. Maybe there was abuse in the home. Maybe there was, they couldn't keep a steady job. And so you lived an uncertain childhood. But a big part of this is understanding who they were in the moment that they did it and having a certain degree of compassion for them doing the best that maybe they could, but also having compassion for yourself in that, good or bad, you probably learned and grew from that experience. Again, I'm trying not to have you have a judgment on what I'm saying, just receive it and sort of be neutral about it. But recognizing your standards and recognizing what your boundaries are also is a way that maybe sometimes you don't need to go cold turkey. You just need to, for those of you listening who are not in the US, going cold turkey means you just stop it altogether. I'm just done with it. I used to eat ketchup. Now I eat it no more. Instead of just saying, well, I'll just use ketchup at lunchtime. Cold turkey just means I'm just never going to have it again. Bless and release, and then moving on from there. So defining those boundaries is as important as my next comment, which is, what are your priorities? If everything is a priority, nothing is. I find myself falling into that trap a little bit during the holiday season. I talked about busy season kind of at the beginning of November, because that's when I consider holiday season starting, because then we go into Thanksgiving and, all of the parties and the planning and all of that good stuff. But also not prioritizing what's important to you creates this kind of sub-level energy disassociation. So you feel stressed out, but you don't quite know why. Oh my God, I'll give you a perfect example. On my way driving from my house to record this episode, I was on hold with my my car dealership for the 25 minutes it took me to get here. Why is that important? Because the oil change light for my car has been on for a few days. And I registered it on my peripheral vision. And I was like, oh, what does that mean? And then I started my car, which is a fancy car. So it literally says to me on the dashboard, hey, girl, if you don't get this fixed, it's going to cause irreparable damage to your car. And I was like, oh my God. And then the third and final resounding bell was my husband drove my car this weekend and totally laid into me. He's like, Stacey, I'm uncomfortable with you driving that car and then you have no oil. Listen, I had to call and get the oil change appointment, which is such a simple thing to do. I sweet talked the dude and I was like, oh my God, can you get me in as soon as possible? So tomorrow morning at 8 a.m., that's where I'll be. I say that to say a priority should be my own safety. The well-being of my car leads to my safety because I am driving to Miami a couple times a week, which is an hour away. And sometimes it's raining and there's traffic and I got to make sure my brakes are working. And we drive our cars and we drive it and we don't notice sometimes when things go wrong. And preventative is actually more powerful than a complete collapse of my engine because I didn't put stupid oil in it when there were all these indicators. So what are your priorities, right? That's just maybe a silly example and you're like, oh my God, Stacey, that's stretching. But definitely it bothered me for weeks before I even actually took the action to have it changed. Now, going into more complex conversations, I won't get into it, but some of the complex prioritization / boundary assessments you're going to have to do entail your relationships. So a big part of when I coach people is I have them, you can listen to past episodes. The titles are pretty darn clear if you ask me. But one of the things we talk about is assessing your relationships. And I'll give you the quick and dirty of how to do this yourself. Write on a sheet of paper the 20 people that you spend the most time with. And I'll give you some nuance to that. It doesn't have to be, oh my God, I don't even have 25 friends. So I'll use myself as an example. The 20 people I spend the most time with are my immediate family. I'll include the dog because I spend a lot of time with that guy. My parents and my siblings to some extent, a few close friends, my co-founder, and a few of our founding members for what we're building. Honestly, I'd include these podcast guys because they see me every week, right? I would include my daughter's boyfriend because he is over at my house. He's eating my food. So who are the 20 people that you spend the most time with? Include your family, work, coworkers, friends, whatever. I'm going to also challenge you to think about it in a different way to include it on your list. Who picks up space or takes up space rather in your head? Who, even though you're not physically present with, perhaps in the way that you would be a coworker, but they pick up space, they take space in your head. It could be somebody that passed and maybe you're grieving. It could be a past volatile relationship where you think about it and cringe each time you have to make a new decision. It could be somebody you can't stand, maybe somebody that betrayed you, maybe an ex, I don't know. But they take up space in your head. And guess what? Not only do they take up space, but your experience with them dictates and sometimes controls the way that you move into new situations. Because you've created a rule or a behavior pattern around perhaps the toxicity. Was that right? Yeah, a toxic relationship. Let me explain that a little bit further. Say you had a friend that cheated. So you had a best friend and then she hooked up with your boyfriend. Yeah. And now you've created a rule that says, I can't trust my friends because they will betray me. So now every time you form a new friendship and you've got that block in the back of your mind, it stops you from fully investing, trusting, loving, leaning into that relationship. And that new person is paying for the sins of the past person. That's what I mean by a relationship from your past or an experience still taking up space in your life, even though physically you haven't talked to that person in 20 years. You're still making decisions based on that relationship. And so as you list those 20 people, you should put that person there if your version of that exists for you. And so the next step becomes very quickly doing a plus or minus on, do I feel good or bad around that person or that memory or that whatever. And then going further is, how good do I feel, 1 to 5? 5 being like, oh my God, I leave your presence and I am warm and fuzzy and happy. They're very rare 5s for a lot of us, but 4 is great. And then on the back end, if it's a negative charge, same thing, -1 to -5. I would say for the people that are -1 and +1, those are great ways to think, how can I move that -1, which is mildly negative, into a neutral space? So you have a decision to make. And then if you have a +1, I really love you, but if you were to do some of these things, or if I were to do some of these things, we would get so much more enjoyment out of this relationship, so much more benefit. You would list what you could do there. Those are easy, low-hanging fruit, right? The really, really tough ones are the outliers, the -4s and 5s in particular. And those are where you got to make some decisions. Those are where you got to make some decisions. Like if it's just a relationship, maybe it's a partnership gone sour and you guys only communicate via, electronic means, and you're co-founders and you used to have a beautiful relationship, you've got to make some decisions about those. So that's one way. That's a really complex way to find what moves you and bring you closer to your purpose, the relationships in your life. The other one, and I won't use such extreme examples, I'm just going to list them for you. Where are you spending your time? How are you spending your money? Or how are you making money? What is bringing you success right now, and what is detracting from your success? And a big one is, what are your rest and recovery habits and your relationship with risk tolerance? I talk about that a lot, because the more tolerant you are of risks, the bigger changes you can make in your life without feeling overwhelmed and feeling hamstrung by this desire to control everything. So yeah, purpose doesn't need to be, full of drama, but it does need to be deliberative and purposeful. Purpose needs to be purposeful, no shit. And then not all at once, just kind of incrementally. So what's going to happen if let's say you spend a couple of weeks, a couple of months, either on your own or doing stuff like that, where you are moving closer to your purpose using some of those techniques that you are engineering now. Here's what shifts when you start living on purpose. And I will tell you, I was a skeptic till I started doing this a couple of years ago. It changed my entire life. I won't go into that, but you can totally listen to past episodes. Here are some benefits. You stop performing, number one. A lot of those identities that used to serve you, that didn't fulfill you, fall by the wayside. And you just start being yourself. You stop explaining. You have richer, more rewarding relationships and community. And you just get clearer and clearer and clearer. A lot of us want that clarity around what's next and what's important. That becomes crystal clear. And then really you stop chasing things that aren't aligned with your core values. So yeah, that's kind of it. And I will tell you, the more tactical things, in addition to just feeling peaceful and grounded and happy, which are big fucking things, right? Is you also start making more money because you're moving in different circles, you're talking differently, your energy is different, you're showing up brighter and better and bigger and braver than before. With your elevated sort of sense of self, you actually attract a different vibe of people. Kid you not. I kid you not. Those energy vampire suckers just fall by the wayside. And alignment gets you closer and closer and closer to this concept of, I want to be free to be myself. Seriously. Anyway, I know I sound like I'm preaching today, but it's super important that in particular for December, I wanted to bring home that it is possible to do these things in smaller ways. So here's where we are. It's December, right? I don't want you to think of this as, oh, it's the end of the year. I'm going to write off everything that happened and start fresh. It's not possible. You're bringing you into the next year. Anywhere you go, there you are. And so a part of this is maybe ease up on what are my goals and worse yet, what didn't I accomplish from my goals? It's not about those resolutions and like making new ones that you're going to break and then fall back into the ugly cycle of it being next December and you're still where you were this December. It's not about vision boards and your new planner. Let me tell you, I have 4 new planners right now. If I don't get my shit together around everything I talk to you about, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how beautiful the gold writing on the planner looks. I still would not have accomplished what I needed to. So purpose is about knowing the difference between living in status quo and moving closer and closer and closer to your full potential of yourself. So in closing, I don't think that any of us need it to be January 1st, insert new year here, to begin again or to decide that we're going to live in purpose. It's not a decision that we make on a day. It's a decision that we make like deep inside. You can't see me. I'm like patting my chest. You can go catch this on YouTube and see me doing that. And so a big part of this is doing those 3 things I talked about, which is living authentically on your own terms and not someone else's version of what a good wife, a good mom, a good leader, a good man, a good XYZ should be. It's about living authentically. We talked about core values and getting in touch with the things that make you genuinely happy, and then how you move that further along the goalpost into 2 millimeter shifts, and then leading courageously, leading yourself through the good, bad, ugly things, the messy things with care and grace and grit. And then, yeah, that's how you get beyond the quo, beyond the status quo, that tricky little sucker. And so thanks for joining me. I am looking forward to talking to you next week, where we go a little bit into um, really the holidays and then really getting some strategies back for you. So thanks. Remember to follow me on LinkedIn, Stacey Luces, and Instagram, and I will see you next week. Thanks for joining me on Beyond the Quo.